In this video, we are going to discuss on the real-time project to learn about the @component and @bean annotation in Spring. The diagram shows that we need to connect to the queues to send and receive messages. To achieve that, first we need to create a bean that connects to the queue manager. In general, a queue manager is a server running inside messaging provider which maintains and manages all the queues. Here in our case we have three queues which are order, delivery, and inventory. Once the connection to the queue manager was implemented, then we need to create three beans to connect to the queue. Assume that to connect to the queues which are delivery, inventory, and order, it requires queue manager connection. So for all the queue connection, the queue manager connection is the dependency. So overall we need to create one bean for queue manager and three beans for the order, delivery, and inventory to send and receive messages to the queue. Let's proceed on the development of the application to understand the differences between @bean and @component annotations in Spring. Open Spring Initializer. Let's create a web application by selecting dependencies as Spring Web and Spring DevTools. DevTools will be helpful for faster development. Let's proceed on download the code by click on Generate button. Let's start on the development. The project messaging engine was imported and ready to run as web application. Let's add a package named as service. I'm going to create a class named as a provider connector which connects to the queue manager. As we have only one queue manager, I have hard-coded the host name, port number, and the queue manager. Assume that the method connect is used to connect to the queue manager. We are not going to do the actual implementation, as it is out of context for this video. Here you can see, once the provider connector bin instance created, it will call the connect method and the connection to the queue manager will be done. We have added the class as @component as it was required to be initiated by the Spring on the server start, and it should be maintained by the container, and it needs to be injected as dependency whenever it is required. So provider container is a good candidate for the @component. I have started the application. After starting the application, you can see the output connected to the queue manager and the host name and the port number. So here you can see using that @component the bean was created. It was instantiated during the server start. Let's move on to the queue connection part. Let's create a class queue connector in the service package. Queue connector class is used to connect the queues like order, delivery, and inventory. As we discussed earlier, queue manager connection was injected and queue name is passed as an argument. When the queue name is passed as order queue, then order queue will be connected, and same for the other queues like delivery and inventory. The connect method connects to the queue on the creation of an instance on server startup. Marked the queue connector as a component, as the queue connection should be created on the server start. Once the connection available, the other services able to send and receive the messages to and from the queue. Let's run the application. After running the application, we are getting an error. Spring expects the queue name should be auto-wired. As we have multiple queues like order, delivery, and inventory, we can't hard-code the queue name in this class. Let's see what will happen when we hard-code the queue name like order queue, and let's run the application. The application was run successfully. First it connected to the queue manager, and second it is connected to the queue that is order queue. As we have multiple queues to connect. So for each queue, do we need to copy the same code in different classes like order queue connector, delivery queue connector, and inventory queue connector? Do we have different option? Yes. To solve this we have @bean annotation. Let's see how it works. Let's change the code to accept QName as an argument to the constructor and remove the @component annotation. Now it is a simple class, not a bean. No bean will be created on the start up of the server. Let's create a new package name as configuration. Add a new class in the configuration package and name the class as ConnectionConfig. Here you can see I have created a method which returns QConnector as an object. To create QConnector object, I have auto-wired the provider connector, which is equivalent to QManager connection, and passed the QName as order queue. Reference to this bean gives connection to the order queue. Once the connection was available, the service can send and receive message of the order queue. You can see I have marked this class as configuration. If a class is marked as configuration, then Spring will scan this class and it will check for @bean annotations. If it is present, Spring will create a bean in the container. Here order queue will be created as a bean. Application was run successfully, and you can see first it connected to the MQManager, and then it was connected to the queue that is order queue. Let's add on the other queue. Here you can see I have created a bean for each queue that is order, delivery, and inventory. A bean will be configured at the method level, and it will return an object. That object will be stored in the container by the Spring framework. Using @bean, we can configure many beans for a particular class. Component is a bean which is mapped to a class, and only one bean can be created for a class. The application was ran successfully, and it connected to the QManager first, and then it connected to the order queue, delivery queue, and inventory queue. We have added enqueue method in the QConnector class to verify the message transfer. Let's verify the code. This part of code will run only after the application context was loaded. Here I have retrieved the order queue bean, that is order queue connection, and similarly delivery queue connection and inventory queue connection. Let's run the application. Application was run successfully, and it got connection of QManager, and the message order placed was sent to the order queue, delivery placed was sent to the delivery queue, and inventory placed was sent to the inventory queue. Hope this video helps to understand the difference between @bean and @component annotation in Spring Boot. Thank you for your valuable time, and please like and subscribe for more videos.